When you crack open the Gospel of Matthew, it's really tempting to just read it like a biography of Jesus. But it's so much more than that. This book is an absolute masterpiece of literary design, a brilliant argument crafted to answer one of the most painful questions a community could ever face. To really get what Matthew is doing, we have to put ourselves in the shoes of his first readers. We're talking about Jewish people who were convinced that Jesus was their long-awaited Messiah. But here's the thing. They were living through this massive crisis of identity. Their entire world had been completely turned on its head. And so this was the question that was just eating them alive. If Jesus really was the triumphant king, the one who was supposed to fix everything for Israel, then why did it all seem to fall apart? Why did their national story end, not in glory, but in absolute disaster? And look, this wasn't some abstract theological debate for them. This was raw. This was real. In the year 70 AD, the Roman armies had marched in and destroyed Jerusalem and its temple. The temple. I mean, this was the center of their universe, the one place on earth where God's presence was supposed to dwell. So how on earth could Jesus be the Messiah if this was the result? Matthew's gospel is written to answer that very question. And Matthew's answer isn't just a list of proof texts. No, it's way more clever than that. It's actually built into the very structure, the architecture of the book itself. He's not just telling stories randomly. He's created this incredible literary design to show his readers where to find God now that the temple is just a pile of rubble. So, what's his big idea? What's the blueprint? Matthew designs his entire gospel to intentionally mirror the most sacred text in all of Jewish scripture, the Torah. The first 5 books of the Bible. It's like he's saying, you think you know the foundational story of our people? Well, get ready, because here is the next and the ultimate chapter. Just look at this structure for a second. It kicks off with an introduction all about Jesus' birth and his identity, and it ends with a conclusion about his death and resurrection. These 2 sections act like bookends, or a frame, and right in the middle, you have these 5 huge blocks of Jesus' teaching. Now, why 5? Does that number sound familiar? Because the Torah has 5 books: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. Matthew is making this powerful visual argument. He's presenting Jesus' 5 great sermons as a new Torah. He's showing that Jesus is the new Moses, the ultimate teacher for God's renewed people. So, let's dive in. From the very first page, Matthew starts layering in these unbelievable parallels. He wants to make it absolutely impossible for you to miss the point. Jesus is the one. He's the figure who fulfills the story of Moses, and by extension, the entire story of Israel. I mean, check out this pattern. It's so deliberate. Moses comes up out of the water of the Red Sea to save his people. Jesus comes up out of the water of his baptism to save his people. Moses goes into the wilderness for 40 years. Jesus goes into the wilderness for 40 days. And here's the big one. Moses goes up Mount Sinai to deliver God's law, right? Well, Jesus goes up a mountain to deliver his most famous teaching, the Sermon on the Mount. Matthew is practically shouting, this is the new and greater Moses. And what does this new Moses teach? He announces that God's kingdom has arrived. But it's what you might call an upside-down kingdom. It's a world where all of our values about power and success get flipped on their head. The poor, the meek, the people who are mourning, they're the ones who are called blessed. Greatness isn't about being first, it's about being last. And you can just feel Jesus' authority in the way he teaches. He says over and over again, you have heard that it was said, and then I'll quote the ancient law, but I say to you. Now, he's not getting rid of the Torah. No way. He's actually intensifying it, showing its deepest, truest meaning. He's showing what it really looks like when God's ways aren't just written on stone, but on the human heart. So when you announce an upside-down kingdom where God is the true king, not Caesar, and when you challenge the established religious leaders, well, you're going to have some conflict. A clash of kingdoms was pretty much inevitable. And all through this conflict, Matthew keeps dropping what we might call hyperlinks back to the Hebrew scriptures. Again and again, he'll say something like, this all happened to fulfill what was spoken by the prophet. He's weaving this beautiful tapestry, showing his readers that Jesus isn't some random detour in Israel's long story. No, Jesus is the destination. He's the one the whole story has been pointing to all along. So what about this community that's forming around Jesus? Well, Jesus uses a very specific Greek word for them, ekklesia. We usually translate that as church, but what it really means is an assembly or a gathering. In the Old Testament, the assembly was Israel gathered before God. So Jesus is saying he's forming a new assembly, a new Israel, a community made up of people from all nations who are going to live out the values of his upside-down kingdom. Okay, so all of this builds and builds until the climax of the book in Jerusalem. And this is where Matthew brings his main theme full circle. Remember, way back at Jesus' birth, he was given the name Emmanuel, which means God with us. The end of the story shows us how that promise becomes a permanent reality. And this is absolutely crucial. In Matthew's telling, the cross is not a tragic defeat, it's the shocking, unexpected victory of the true king. It's the ultimate demonstration of the upside-down kingdom, where Jesus defeats evil not with power and force, but by giving up his own life. It's this stunning moment where power is made perfect in weakness, and true life comes only through death and sacrifice. And then, after the resurrection, Jesus gives his followers their final mission. And the very last words he speaks in the entire book are this incredible promise, "And surely I am with you always, to the very end of the age." The story that began with the promise of God with us in the name Emmanuel ends with the resurrected Jesus promising his own personal presence with his people forever. So, for those first readers grappling with the loss of their temple, Matthew is making this mind-blowing claim. God's presence is no longer found in a building, it's found in a person, Jesus the Messiah. He is the new, true temple. He is the fulfillment of Israel's entire story, and he is the living presence of God with us. And that is what the Gospel of Matthew is all about.